if your ex is a woman or an avoidant, especially a fearful avoidant, and or you've been in no contact for months and months and have lost all hope of ever hearing from your ex, then this video is for you. My client got his fearful avoidant ex back after 9 long months. And once they started seeing each other again, he asked her the question that most people never get the answer to, and that is, what made her finally reach out after such a long time? And she gave him a very detailed answer that I know you'll be interested in hearing. So I'm going to walk you through the story in my client's own words. He was nice enough to write this out for me, of how the relationship fell apart, what happened during no contact, what I believe caused the breakup, and what finally made her reach out with a substantial message instead of a breadcrumb. So stay tuned. Hi, this is Lucia with The Art of Love. I'm a dating and relationship expert specializing in helping you get your ex back or to get over your ex. And welcome back, my beautiful no contact army. Have you been a good little soldier and stayed in no contact? If you have, then hopefully you're using my app Silencio to stay in no contact. And the link to that is underneath every single video and podcast. And if you'd like to read, you can also check out my book, No Contact Secrets, available at nocontactsecrets.com, where you can read 2 free chapters before you purchase the book. Okay, let's get started. Get your popcorn. This is going to be long, but interesting, of course. Okay, so he says, from the very beginning, sparks were flying left and right. She would routinely tell me, "You're so attractive. I can't believe this sex is this good with a guy this hot." What is she saying? Is she saying you can't have good sex with a guy unless he's ugly? I don't know. She called me trouble. I love that. I bet you did. She said the feelings you give me scare me. Well, there was clue number 1 that there was trouble up ahead. That's me saying that, not him. So I told her, it scares you? And she said, yeah, it's like, it just makes me kind of crazy. Like, I'm a control freak, man. And I said, well, you don't seem like a control freak to me. Trust me, if someone says they're a control freak, they're a control freak. Trust them. And she said, oh, but I am. I don't like to lose control of how I feel and what makes me feel good. And when you really like somebody, it can make you kind of lose yourself. And there was yet another clue. At that time, I kind of just brushed that off and chalked it up. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But hey, that's good, right? She likes me. Yeah. After we'd been dating about 2 to 3 months, it happened. She pulled away from me. She went cold. Where she was texting all the time, she was suddenly texting very little and not reaching out. She canceled the get-together with no reschedule. I reached out to her a couple of times and I just got short answers. So I responded to cold with cold. I started to take my time replying to her texts, would give short answers, and sometimes only give a reaction to her text. A couple of weeks would go by and she would warm up and she'd say, hey, what are you doing this week? And we'd start talking and then we'd start hanging out again. But every time this happened, something about the connection took a hit. It was like there was this tension there that kept increasing. But I thought nothing of it and we kept going. Ended up seeing her one night. I could feel the tension. Something was off. She was extra moody. She was hypercritical of me, criticizing small things. I left early that night, didn't give a reason other than, hey, I got to work tomorrow. She knew something was wrong. She tried to get me to communicate with her, but I just said, no, I'm tired, and I left. The old, oh, I'm tired excuse. Listen, if someone uses the I'm tired as an excuse, it's not true. It's an excuse. Don't ever believe it, okay? As you'd expect, not long after this, she broke up with me. I thought we'd recover from this one like all the others. It absolutely blindsided me. She said, maybe we're just not right to be in relationships, and I don't think we can go backwards to friends with benefits. I guess friends with benefits was kind of our safe space, but anyway, I guess that's just how it goes. So I said, you don't want to see me anymore? And she said, I think you're a great guy, had a really good time with you, and I really do care about you, and I know we care about each other. I just think that we suck at relationships. And I said, well, do you think we could see each other just once, just to kind of talk things through? And she said, now you're being that low, smooth-talking guy. I know that you would get your feelings hurt if we met in person. Those words cut me deep. She was worrying about hurting my feelings. I said, okay, well, I guess let me know if you change your mind. Yeah, okay. Okay, someone's been listening to Corey Wayne. You're not going to talk someone out of breaking up with you when they've made up their mind. So there was no point. But of course, he was blindsided. He didn't know that you're just supposed to say, oh, okay. But it's okay. This wasn't a fatal error. And so she said, I lost myself trying to make you like me. I gave it 100% this time. I can't try any harder. I'm sorry. So I said, okay, peace be with you. And she said, but you're a good guy. You'll get treated like a king. Peace be with you too. Are we in mass here? Are we in the Catholic mass? Why is everybody saying peace be with you? What is this? And I guess, bye, since you have weird rules about texting your exes. And I just said, I don't want to talk to you because I still care about you and I still like you. And the only reason I'd ever talk to an ex would be if I no longer care about them. Or if I dumped them and I felt guilty about it. And she said, yeah, toxic exes, whatever. And that was the last straw. I was ready to do no contact. I was so angry. I felt she so easily threw me in the trash. Well, no, that's not what happened. But of course, that's how it appears. I knew at that moment I would never reach out to her again. I began drinking. I was confused. I missed her. I wanted answers. So I contacted Lucia. I received some valuable insight, but the main insight was, of course, no contact and that my ex was very likely an avoidant. So then he talks about the fact that there was a shooting in her building, and there's a friend of his, a mutual friend, that lives in the building, and so he contacted the friend, but just to find out what happened. But he wanted, of course, to find out what happened with the ex, if the ex was okay, but he didn't want to ask, so he just called the friend, and when he found out what happened, he figured the ex was okay. Well, 2 weeks later, the ex contacts him, and the mutual friend's name is Joe, by the way, and she says, she texted him, and she said, so you can text Joe and make sure he's okay? Well, when she said that, that was actually a test, and it was a bid for attention, and it was a sign that she still cared. Okay, that's why she said that. And he answered with, well, I already knew Joe was okay. I hope you're doing well. She left a thumbs up emoji to that message. Yeah, she wasn't happy. I wanted so much to tell her. I called Joe to make sure you were okay. I had to fight myself not to text that. That was the right move. Luckily, you didn't do it. 45 days later, she sent me a message and a picture saying, I had to share this with you. Hope you're doing well. And I thought to myself, what is this? What's the so it's okay to text Joe? And now she's texting this. So I guess you're going to forget all about that. So I left it on read. And it was actually the best feeling ever. 23 days after that, I was really starting to feel good. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually moving on. And then she reached out to wish me a happy birthday. And I said, thank you. At this point, I was thinking, okay, well, eventually she's going to get vulnerable with me. Nope. Silence, pure silence. 3 months of nothing. The feeling I had of, hey, she'll be back, I'm sure of it, was starting to diminish. Yeah, well, silence can do that to you because there's an information gap. You have no idea what's going on. So I noticed the pit in my stomach starting to grow. I started to feel I truly started to feel grief and loss. I think I'd come to expect those breadcrumbs, and when they didn't come in that 3-month period, I began to feel some real pain. I was like, yo, I'm supposed to be feeling good right now. I'm supposed to be moving on around this time. I'm supposed to be dating other women and enjoying it, but I'm not. One day I went to work and I saw my ex sitting on the beach. He works at the beach, by the way. And she looked back at my truck as I drove by. And then she sent me a wave emoji. An hour later, I sent back a wave emoji also. And she sent me a picture of her and Joe, the mutual friend, at the pool. And she said, look who I found. And, they chatted a bit about that. And then he said that I found a quiet spot. I turned the truck's engine off and I felt tears streaming down my face. I felt relief, longing, and sadness. I really didn't know why. Luckily, I had Lucia to tell me. She said the breadcrumb message reset my nervous system and the relief was kicking in. All that tension was releasing and it showed up as tears. After that casual conversation with her, she was gone. And though there's always pain and silence, this silence was a little different. It was more confusing than painful. she would show up at the beach and just stare at my truck. Well, that's not creepy. And then bolt, but she would never reach out or wave. Then I saw her on Tinder, and that wasn't fun. And I knew, even though it was likely she'd already been dating and seeing other men at this point, seeing her on Tinder just felt like such a slap in the face. Right after the conversation we had, she right-swiped me on Tinder because I have the premium version so I could tell. But Lucia said, don't you dare swipe right. If you do that, she'll get the relief of knowing that you're still interested without having to put any real effort forward. So I was a good little soldier and I did not swipe right. A couple of weeks later, I realized nearly 7 months had gone by, and it was just too much time that had been devoted to this. And Lucia said, hey, I don't think this is healthy. It's been 7 months. And he said, I don't think this is healthy. It's been 7 months. I feel like my heart is still waiting. And she said, yes, you've given it enough. And if your ex isn't capable of coming back or giving you what you want, I know it hurts, but eventually you'll get over it. Well, somehow I started getting over my ex. And then, dun, 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 I got a text message. Of course, that's always how it goes, right? You start moving on and suddenly it was my ex. Happy holiday, Santa. Exactly 3 months of no contact had gone by, and she was sending me a holiday wish. I said, I hope you have a good holiday too. Thank you. She sent me a picture of her with her dogs, and she said, just merry little elves over here. I hearted the message, and then she said, do you want to come over one night? And I said, yeah, that could be nice. I told him that he could say that. And she said, yeah, you got to come and check out these Christmas decorations. I told Lucia, girl, I hope you know what you're doing, because this is just completely not where I thought this was going. I thought that I had to, not go over there. So you just want me to go over there? And she said, yes, you're just going to go over there. Yeah, because my advice isn't one size fits all. That was a significant message. So of course he had to go. Well, when I went over there, and shortly after getting inside, she said, hey, can I have a hug? I said, sure. And we hugged and we fooled around a bit. So slowly but surely, we started seeing each other again. A few months later, after we settled in a bit more, I asked her, because this is the part I know everyone is interested in, so what was it that made you reach out to me after all that time? And I told them to ask that for all of you listening, and I told them to use that exact phrase. And she said, I had to shoot my shot. I figured very likely you had a girlfriend, or you just weren't going to respond to me if I did nothing. I would wonder if I could have done something. I was scared of getting rejected by you, but I couldn't live without you knowing that maybe there was something I could have done, but I felt that you were not coming back to me on your own. Yeah, that's the power of no contact. They always think at some point you're going to reach out, you're going to chase, and at some point they realize, I guess he's not going to reach out, and I don't want to lose him. So she said, I've only gone back to 2 other exes in my life, and both of them ended horribly, very quickly. And it just increased the suffering for everyone involved. But this is the first time that I've come back on my own, and it's also the first time the connection somehow just seems untouched. I hated that you wouldn't talk to me. I told myself that you didn't care. I still felt like that wasn't true, though. I couldn't get you out of my head. I admired that you let me go, and I hated that I admired that I couldn't let you go. She hated the fact that she admired that he couldn't let her go. That's why you're trouble. You see, I knew. Well, I guess that's thanks to the OG love goddess Lucia. Because I used her help throughout this entire process. After seeing each other for 3 months, we're officially back together. Woohoo! So, what likely happened here is that she got emotionally activated very early, and instead of feeling safe inside of that connection, she started to feel out of control, as usually happens with fearful avoidance. So she basically told him that herself at the beginning, when she said the feeling scared her, she was a control freak, and that liking someone can make you lose yourself. So that wasn't just flirtation. That was a preview of coming attractions. She felt a lot, and instead of relaxing into it, she started to manage it. So when she got overwhelmed, she pulled away. The problem is that then he pulled away too. And he wasn't doing it to punish her. He was protecting himself. He didn't know she was an avoidant. But from her side, that made the whole thing worse. So now she's the one who created the distance. So she started the fire. But then when he responded by becoming colder, more guarded, and less available, she felt the connection slipping and started over-functioning to get it back. So then he added fuel to the fire by pulling back. So she'd warm up again, reach out again, re-engage, and restore closeness. And then once the closeness is back, she would get overwhelmed again, pull away again, and we're off to the races. We're in that cycle, we're in that loop. So that becomes exhausting, obviously, because every round damages the bond a bit more. It creates tension, insecurity, and resentment on both sides. He starts feeling confused and guarded because she's inconsistent. As I said, he didn't know at the time that she was a fearful avoidant, and also that pulling away was going to make things worse. And she started feeling like she's the one trying harder, managing the emotional temperature, and chasing the connection back to life after she destabilizes it. And that's why she said, "I lost myself trying to make you like me." That doesn't sound like someone who just lost interest. It sounds like someone who felt herself over-functioning, overextending, and then eventually emotionally unraveling. So she didn't break up with him because she felt nothing. She broke up with it because the relationship had become too dysregulating for her. She was feeling too much and then pulling away and then panicking. And then he would pull away too, and then working too hard to restore closeness, and then resenting how much effort she had to put in, and eventually she hit a wall. So the breakup was less about a lack of care and more about emotional overload. She couldn't tolerate what the dynamic was doing to her, so instead of fixing it, she ended it. But now they've been back together for 3 months and recently made it official, so all's well that ends well. So now I want to hear from you. Do you have any questions or comments about anything I've said in this video or podcast? Please comment below. And if you too would like to have a happy ending like my client, then you can contact me for coaching at theartoflove.net/coaching, and we will send you the rates. They are not on the website. And also be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos or podcasts. And in the meantime, remember, love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.